My name is Samir. Once just a boy with dreams and laughter, I became a prisoner in my own life, shackled by the very bonds of family and faith that were supposed to protect me. Everything changed forever on a fateful evening when the meal at the dinner table, filled with familiar aromas, morphed into a dark omen. "You are to be married," my father proclaimed, shattering the fragile peace that held my world together. As the weight of his announcement settled in, a chilling realization coursed through me. I was to be wed to my own sister, a truth hidden beneath layers of deception. In that moment, I became acutely aware of the torment festering within the supposed sanctity of our family, a torment twisted by cultural honor and religious obligation. My father's calmness sent a wave of horror through me. He invoked our faith to justify the grotesque, depicting this tragic arrangement as a divine decree. It was then I realized I was caught in a battle greater than myself, a spiritual war, between love and obligation, truth and silence. As I stood before my family, knowing this wasn't love but a sham disguised as tradition, the weight of shame threatened to consume me whole. Yet, in the depths of despair, something extraordinary awaited. That night, as I teetered on the edge of darkness, a near-death experience transported me beyond the veil of this world. I found myself enveloped in a radiant light, a warmth I had long yearned for. It was here that I encountered Jesus, not as the figure I had been taught to fear, but as the embodiment of profound truth, beckoning me to see beyond the illusion fashioned by those who sought to control me. "You must awaken," he urged, his voice resonating within the very fabric of my soul. In this divine encounter, the true nature of our existence unfolded before my eyes, a shocking revelation of manipulation by an elite few, orchestrating chaos to further divide humanity. As I witnessed the spiritual warfare waged against our hearts, I understood that the struggles of my own life were merely reflections of a far-reaching deception. I realized it was my divine calling to confront the darkness, not just for myself, but for all who remained entrenched in ignorance. The chains of tradition could not bind me if I dared to speak the truth. Now, as I step into this journey of revelation, I invite you to listen with an open heart. Before we dive deeper, leave a comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are? I am eager to connect with you as we traverse this path together. And if you find yourself feeling the stirrings of awakening, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. What I'm about to share may very well become the light that guides you through your own shadows. The truth awaits. I never imagined my life would lead me to such unfathomable depths of betrayal, especially from those I held most dear. I was sitting at the dinner table one evening, the warm, familiar sense of home swirling around me when the announcement shattered the illusion of comfort. I was to be married. But as the words sank in, a cold shiver crept up my spine. The veil of joy and celebration was tainted by an impending darkness. It wasn't just any marriage, I learned. It was an arranged marriage to my own biological sister, a truth that had been grotesquely kept hidden from me. The weight of this revelation pressed heavily on my conscience. My heart raced as I confronted my father. I never expected the chilling calmness in his response. Instead of outrage or guilt, I was met with a deceptive calm. "It's our duty," he insisted, invoking our faith to justify what was indefensible. It is then I realized the lengths to which he'd go to uphold our family's so-called honor, even at the cost of my autonomy. The twisted interpretations of our faith fed his resolve, shrouded in layers of silence and betrayal. It felt like a spiritual war, me against the entire world, battling against traditions that claimed their roots in righteousness, but thrived on deception. Against my will, cultural fear gripped me with an iron fist. I stood before family, friends, and the community, trapped in a moment that should have signified love and commitment, but was instead a grotesque masquerade. As I exchanged vows with her, the weight of an unshared existence pressed down upon my soul. I was resigned to a fate that felt like internal genocide. Like a dying ember in a storm, I feared my spirit would extinguish, buried beneath layers of shame and obligation. In those paralyzing moments, I realized the truth I had long ignored. The bond of blood was not unbreakable as I gasped for air in the depths of my despair. Then, everything changed. Later that night, I had a near-death experience that shattered my understanding of life and death. I found myself in an ethereal space, the walls shimmering with a light that pulsated with warmth and love. Jesus appeared before me, his presence radiating a profound truth that pierced the veil of deception I had lived under. He showed me a glimpse of reality, a spiritual battlefield where humanity was entrapped by unseen forces, manipulated by an elite hidden agenda. I saw the world as a chessboard, with leaders moving pieces according to a strategy soaked in greed and fear. The revelation was overwhelming. I suddenly understood that the wars waged were not only of guns and bombs, but battles of the spirit, a struggle for the truth in a world rife with fake narratives, spun by those in power. "You must awaken," Jesus urged, his voice deep and soothing. "The time for silence is over." I watched as technology morphed from a tool of progress into a means of oppression, a device designed to distract and divide. In that moment, I felt the urgency within my spirit. It was an awakening that called me forth. Returning to my body, I was forever changed. The weight of my forced marriage felt more than a personal wound. It symbolized the mass deception that ensnares countless lives. I could no longer remain silent, hidden amid familial loyalty. I felt a divine responsibility to expose the lies and call others to awaken from their slumber. The chains of tradition couldn't bind me if I was willing to name the truth, no matter how fiercely the world would fight back. In that darkness, I realized that the spiritual war had not only begun in me, but echoed through every heart yearning for liberation. And yet, as I resolved to break free, a sense of dread flickered. What awaited me on this journey to reclaim my spirit? I was living an ordinary life, working as a truck driver, navigating the endless highways that stretched across my country. Day in and day out, the rhythm of the open road lulled me into a sense of routine. I was driven by the simple duties of providing for my family, the hum of my engine accompanying my thoughts as I figured out the little intricacies of daily life. I had my faith, or so I thought, having grown up in a small community that held its beliefs tightly. Life felt secure in its predictability, until one fateful night when everything changed. A reckless driver came barreling toward me, and in an instant, my world was torn apart. In that violent collision, as I felt my body being ripped from reality, everything faded away. My consciousness pulled into an abyss that terrified me to my core. In that dark void, I glimpsed a faint light, a shimmering presence that slowly began to take form. As that light brightened, I found myself standing before Jesus. His face was peaceful, radiating an aura of compassion that enveloped me. I felt an overwhelming love emanating from him, washing over the pain I had just endured. "You've been caught in the web of deception," he said, his voice gentle yet commanding. "The world you thought you knew is riddled with lies, crafted by those who wish to maintain control. An elite army manipulating your beliefs, guiding you towards divisions and chaos." My heart raced. As his words sank in, everything I had held to be true felt like sand slipping through my fingers. I understood then, as if scales were falling from my eyes, the intricacies of a spiritual war that transcended mere earthly struggles. As he spoke, visions enveloped me, each more vivid than the last. I saw leaders siphoning power as they fed the flames of conflict, all while cloaked in righteousness. Nations turned against one another, families divided, all orchestrated by a hidden agenda, one that left humanity fighting over scraps. The very fabric of what connects you is being torn apart by fear and misinformation, Jesus warned, showing me glimpses of future catastrophes, wars fueled not by necessity, but by greed and the thirst for domination. I was overcome with emotion. A whirlwind of despair and urgency coiled around my chest. Suddenly, the realization dawned on me that this war was not just political, but deeply spiritual. A fight for our collective soul. I found myself in a scene filled with chaos, where citizens, once united, were pitted against one another over ideologies and information, all manipulated to foster division and hatred. Technology played its part, a double-edged sword. On one side, it connected us, while on the other, it wove a sinister narrative, one that further entrenched the powerful and rendered the vulnerable voiceless. I saw innocents being misled, their trust exploited by the very systems that were meant to protect them. My heart ached for them, for I understood now that this wasn't just my fight. It was a battle being fought on various fronts, our common humanity hanging in the balance. In the depths of this revelation, I was struck by the clarity of my own choices. Jesus beckoned me to awaken to the truth, to break free from the chains that had bound me. Your identity isn't rooted in society's labels or the expectations of the world. It's found in the love that connects us all. The words resonated within me, stirring a hope just beneath the surface. I realized that waking up was more than just seeing through the lies. It required action, a bold step towards uncovering the deeper truths behind the facade presented to us daily. The urgency grew. There was so much work to be done, yet I felt paralyzed under the weight of such righteous duty. The light began to dim, and as it did, a deep longing welled within me to stay, to learn more, to embrace the revelations unfolding before my eyes. But in that moment, I felt a jolt, a force pulling me back to my earthly home. I clung to the hope instilled by Jesus, but knew that this journey had only just begun. The power to ignite awareness and instigate change resided within me. But how? I was torn between the comfort of my old life and the daunting path ahead. Now, as I caught a fleeting glimpse of the truth, I felt it, the impending stillness of a new dawn waiting just out of reach, yet demanding all to awaken and step forward in courage. I never imagined I would arrive at this moment, a crossroads between existence and oblivion. I was just an engineer, spending long hours immersed in my work, chasing deadlines and managing projects without ever questioning the foundational beliefs that underpinned my life. Family, faith, tradition. They were the pillars I built my world upon. My reality was a tapestry, woven with communal rituals and expectations, each thread binding me tighter to a predetermined fate. But everything changed on that fateful day when I encountered a traumatic event that would shatter my perception of reality itself. It was during a routine day at work when the accident happened. A malfunctioning machine, a cascade of metal and steel, and in an instant, my life flipped upside down. I experienced a moment of terror so profound that it felt as though time had stopped, a near-death experience that plunged me into a darkness I had never known. I could feel my consciousness drifting away from my body, hovering above the chaos, observing the frantic scramble of my colleagues, the life I had known fading into the background. And then came the light, a brilliance that enveloped me like a warm embrace, transcending everything I had ever experienced. There, in that sacred illumination, emerged a figure clad in white, radiating love and warmth. It was Jesus, not the Jesus spoken of in dogma or distant memories of childhood sermons, but an entity of profound strength and compassion. In his presence, a veil lifted from my eyes, revealing truths about life, society, and the spiritual war playing out around us. He called me chosen, igniting a flicker of hope in a heart that had long been buried under layers of fear and obligation. As he spoke, I found myself bombarded with visions, a rapid-fire avalanche of insights that pierced through the fog of my previous ignorance. I witnessed the machinations of the elite, a shadowy cabal that orchestrated strife and division to maintain control over the masses. Each image struck me like a dagger. Wars fueled by avarice, nations torn apart by fabricated enmity, leaders manipulating the fears of their people like puppeteers wielding sinister strings. I realized then, with a sickening clarity, how deeply I had been ensnared in a web of deception, viewing the world through a lens crafted by those who thrived in darkness. In that moment of revelation, I understood the futility of my previous beliefs. Every bit of wisdom I thought I understood crumbled to dust, leaving a burning question. What was the truth, and what could I do about it? I felt a surge of urgency coursing through me. I had to awaken, not just for myself, but for the collective fabric of humanity. As Jesus continued to reveal the depths of this spiritual war, a battle for our souls being waged relentlessly by unseen forces, I understood this was not my struggle alone. It was a call for all of us to wake up, to resist the slumber of complacency, and to seek the light amidst the shadows. But with every revelation came the stark realization of the toll it could take. The weight of knowledge I now carried felt both liberating and burdensome, fueling a fire within me even while it aroused a sense of dread. Would I be categorized as a heretic for my awakening? What would become of my relationships, my connections? As the darkness seemed to encroach upon me, relentless in its pursuit to silence the truth, I recognized that my journey had only just begun. The world I was accustomed to was built on illusions, and the path forward would be fraught with peril. Each step toward truth was a step into the unknown, into potential ridicule, into a battlefield where my newly unshackled spirit would confront long-held beliefs, an encounter I was both uneasy and eager to embrace. I remember the day it all changed. I was driving my truck down that familiar highway, the sun dipping low in the sky, painting everything gold with its dying light. I was a simple man, just trying to provide for my family, lost in the monotony of life, driven by the weight of responsibilities and unspoken dreams. The routine felt safe, predictable, until the moment fate decided otherwise. An unexpected tire blowout sent my truck swerving, metal crunching against asphalt, and in that instant, my world faded to black. When I came to, I was no longer in my body. It was as if I had slipped not just from reality, but time itself. I found myself surrounded by an indescribable brilliance, light that held no shadows, warmth that wrapped around me like an embrace. And there he was. Jesus stood before me, his eyes holding galaxies of wisdom, love radiating from him in waves that swept through my very essence. He didn't come as the distant figure I had remembered from stories, but as a friend, a healer, and a guide. In that divine moment, I felt a shocking clarity. My failures, fears, and my entire life laid bare. Yet in his presence, I felt neither condemnation nor guilt. He began to reveal truths, hidden agendas, that governed our world, crafted by the elite who manipulated their way through politics and society. I saw scenes of chaos, nations divided, men and women lost in strife, the unheard cries of the marginalized drowned out by the roar of power-hungry leaders. But it went deeper. I witnessed the technology they wielded, a double-edged sword that brought connectivity while fostering isolation, data harvesting, masquerading as progress. In every image, I sensed an urgency, a divine warning echoing. Within me, a call to awaken, to seek beyond the facades presented as truth. In that ethereal space, I was taken to places where spiritual warfare waged relentlessly. I saw the forces of darkness that thrived on fear and deception, feeding off despair, sowing seeds of division among families, friends, even communities. I felt the weight of those lies burying humanity under layers of confusion, masking the simplicity of faith and love. "This is the battle," he told me. "An awakening is needed." Many are still asleep, clinging to the comfort of ignorance. His words were like arrows piercing through the fog that had clouded my judgment all these years. But then came a revelation that struck deeper than any other: the fragile state of our human existence. I witnessed glimpses of a future where choices made today echoed in eternity. The power of unity against the ever-looming darkness, the need for courage to speak out, to stand for truth in a world steeped in deception. It all became clearer. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as he conveyed our shared responsibility. It was no longer just about my life. It was about a collective awakening, a spiritual revival that hung precariously in the balance. But just as swiftly as it had begun, the vision began to fade, leaving an electrifying tension in the air as I was pulled back to my own reality. What was I to do with these revelations? That uncertainty settled heavy in my spirit, urging me to seek further, to push through the fear that gripped so many around me. I remember lying in that hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my lungs, my body battered, the agony a constant reminder of the price I had paid for my faith. The world outside seemed distant, muffled, like I was stuck in some liminal space where time no longer held meaning. I'd been assaulted by my own family for the choice I made to follow Jesus, an act of rebellion against everything I had known. My uncle's fist had struck me in public, a visceral betrayal that echoed in the hearts of those around us. And my brother, the one I grew up with, the one who had shared childhood dreams, had tried to kill me in a fit of rage over my conversion. The blood that soaked my clothes only amplified my resolve. I had chosen to embrace the truth, and nothing would take that away from me. As I remained there, teetering on the edge of consciousness, I felt something shift within me. Suddenly the pain faded, and the world faded away. I was enveloped in darkness. It was disorienting, yet oddly comforting. And then a light appeared, a radiant presence that transcended all worldly understanding. It was Jesus standing before me, not as some remote figure from texts, but as an embodiment of love and compassion. In that moment, every doubt I had ever felt melted away, and all I wanted was to reach out to him. He offered me more than understanding. He provided a gateway to a revelation that would dismantle the very fabric of my beliefs. I was shown visions, scenes that unfolded like a film strip in my mind. A war, not just the battles fought on foreign lands, but a celestial struggle, a spiritual war for the hearts and souls of humanity. I sensed the insidious nature of the deception woven into the very structures of our society. Leaders who feigned concern, yet manipulated the masses, sowing division and chaos under a banner of righteousness. The elite, cloaked in the shadows, thrived on fear and confusion. I saw how their hidden agenda had played out through wars, social divisions, and relentless propaganda, all designed to keep us apart, pitted against one another. It was a betrayal I could no longer ignore, and the urgency to awaken my spirit became palpable. As the visions continued, I felt the burden of prophecy weigh upon me. I witnessed how technology, once a beacon of hope and progress, had morphed into a tool of surveillance and control. The smartphones we held close had the capability to manipulate our thoughts and actions, leading us deeper into a pit of distrust. With each revelation, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility rise within me. How could I continue living as if these truths were mere figments? I understood now that the awakening wasn't solely about me. It was about the millions who remained asleep, unaware of the war being waged for their souls. The tension grew, My heart raced. My faith had ignited a fire I couldn't quench. I was thrust back into reality, lying in that hospital. Bed once more. Grace, the Christian nurse who had cared for me, sat by my side. Her gentle demeanor was a stark contrast to the chaos I'd just witnessed. I grasped her hand, needing her presence as much as I had needed Jesus. "There's so much more out there, isn't there?" I whispered. She nodded, tears in her eyes, as if she understood the weight of my journey. What I had perceived as an oppressive darkness was a call to arms, an invitation to share the truth of my revelations. I wasn't merely a victim. I had become a soldier in this spiritual war, compelled to confront the structures that sought to suppress us. Each day, I felt a growing urgency to face my family and the community that had shunned me. The confrontation loomed like an impending storm. As I grappled with the fear of retaliation, the insights from my near-death experience echoed through my mind. Jesus had shown me the path, not through fear, but through love. I imagined standing before my father and the imam, proclaiming my truth in the face of their wrath. Every step forward held the promise of awakening, not just for myself, but for all those who lived in the shadows of their own beliefs. I could feel the coming storm,